Welcome, everybody. Long time no see. I am very excited to see familiar faces, to see new faces. In this workshop, we're going to be discussing how to build AI agents that connect to tools and services that you likely are already using. One thing that helps me is sometimes I do a gut check for understanding. So if I ask does this make sense? If you could give a thumbs up. If it doesn't make sense, give a thumbs down. If you are unsure about whether it makes sense or not, just give us, uh, some sort of hand signal. I use video to kind of get a gauge on understanding for concepts, and we can spend more time discussing, a particular thing. I will also feel free to use the chat as a place to ask questions. We may not have the answer right away, but we will pause frequently for question and answer as we go through. In this case, usually the way I like to run these is you can stop me at any time, but since we have a lot of information to cover, I'm going to take pauses, and so I'm not, um, you know, if you raise your hand in the middle of something that we're presenting, I will just acknowledge that we see you, and we're going to pause during the Q&A portion of these things, and we'll pause every half hour or so to just get a gauge on people's understanding of this stuff. What's really cool about all of these connections is all of the different services. And when you think about connections in MindStudio, we're going to talk about a few different things. There are a few different kinds of connections and different ways that you can connect to other services, and that comes in MindStudio in the form of these integrations, um, connectors, and the HTTP request block. And we're going to be covering kind of the differences between all of these things. They're all very similar, but there are just some slight differences that you should be aware of, including where to find them, how to access them, and use them. I'm also going to be showing you how to use webhook triggers. Webhook triggers, for those of you that are familiar with the automation space, webhooks are an incredibly useful tool to send information to another platform or service. And MindStudio has a webhook run mode, which gives you a unique URL that can be triggered to receive data and create a MindStudio workflow. And then lastly, for every block that we have a bunch of blocks on MindStudio, but there are many services that maybe you're specifically trying to use that might not be available. And for that, we have this thing called an HTTP request block. And so I'm going to show you how to call an API and get information back from an API from any particular service that you might be using. Most modern services online have these APIs that you can tap into to get information or to send information off. And then we'll obviously be going through a bunch of demos for each of these things. Some key skills that you're going to want to have. There are folks that are in all different stages of learning. The one key skill that you're going to need to have in order for all this to make sense is understanding of variables and how to use variables inside of MindStudio workflows. We generate variables when we use different blocks in MindStudio, and then we can call those variables later on in our workflow. We'll show you what that looks like in a second. If you're not familiar with structured data, particularly JSON, a lot of these blocks, and when you make an API call to a different service, it's going to return JSON data back. And so being able to parse through that data is going to be a very important skill as you're kind of going through and building different things that connect to all these different services. I'm also going to show you how, if you've never looked at API documentation before, I'm going to show you how to read the documentation in a very efficient way, because that's half of the skill. Actually using an API is not difficult at all. It's just understanding the specific things in an API request in order to get that particular piece of information. And along with that, we'll be looking at, API endpoints and kind of what they are and how they work. So really quick, before we dive into, sort of these practical demos, I want to quickly talk about the difference between what's an integration versus what's a connector versus what's just the HTTP request block. And one thing that you should know is all of these use APIs to connect to other tools and services. If a service does not have an API, it means that it intentionally does not want to allow for connections to that service. This is the way that different services can communicate with one another. And so all of these things are just blocks that use an API somehow to send data back and forth. Now, the main difference is a little more subtle between these blocks. So when we look at integrations in particular, these you can think of integrations as being these pre-built connections that we have created internally on MindStudio and that connect to an external service. All of this stuff is handled automatically. That the this will You'll find all of these inside of the blocks menu. So if we look at if we look at just a workflow here and we open up this thing to see more blocks, let me zoom in a little bit. You can see if we start scrolling down the page that we have all of these blocks available. These are all integration blocks, right? These are things that allow you to tap into different APIs to get all of this data back or send data somewhere else. And all of these blocks are pre-configured, meaning you don't need to already have an account, like a developer account on X or on YouTube in order to leverage these APIs. We've already pre-configured it for you. Same for things like, the Google search and all of the Google Docs stuff, sending emails and SMS, Slack history, these Hunter IO blocks that allow us to find people data, as well as, things like these Coda blocks and Airtable blocks, HubSpot blocks. All of these are they're pre-built, and we've spent time to create that abstraction on the platform. So you can see here some examples are like Slack and Notion and Google Drive. The difference between integrations and connectors, whoops, let me go back here. So you can see here we have the blocks menu, and we also have this separate connectors menu. And the thing about this connectors menu is these are also blocks that you'd add to your workflow, but the main difference is that these will require you to be a customer of that service and will require an API key from that service in order to use these particular tools. In other cases, it'll just ask you to sign in using your like account information in the blocks menu. But when we're using a connector, you'll need to have access to the API key in order to use the service. Other than that, it's pretty much the same as a regular block. So if we look at, let's take a look at a couple here. So if we look at something like post to Slack, and then we look at something, if we go here, like, let's see here. Sure, we've got this Apollo organization search. You'll notice that both look, very, very similar. But like I said, the difference is that when you create a connection in this, either in this integrations menu, or if you connect a new account, it's just going to ask, see how I don't have to provide any sort of, can you see this extra window, by the way, or not? No. Okay, great. There's a little pop-up window that basically either if you're already signed into the service says, okay, you're signed in. Do you allow MindStudio to like communicate with this other platform? Hold on, I'm just gonna mute everyone really quick. Sorry about that.
You don't money if you have.
Careful with your mics. We can hear you. Versus this is a connector block. And you'll notice that when I create a new account here, can you see this screen? This is specifically going to ask you for an API key, right? And API keys will be found in different places. Usually in these connector blocks, you'll find the exact place. It'll provide a URL here to find where to create an API key. And so if we follow that particular URL, we should be able to go here. It'll say create a new API key, launch Apollo settings, and it'll give you instructions and it'll lead you to the documentation here. And so what you'd end up doing is following, um, the path to a screen that looks like this, um, on whatever service you're using. So I'm a subscriber of Apollo. We have an API key here, and you can create new keys usually by there will be a button on the service that says create new key. You'll name the key. I'll call this demo October 15th. And then we'll say delete after workshop. And then some services, this is where you're going to want to, I'll teach you how to do this, but read the documentation to see what you actually need because there are a lot of different things that you can do with this API key. So if we look at Apollo's documentation, there's a bunch of different endpoints. Each of these things is called an endpoint, and that's because it's essentially a URL that is unique to getting that piece of information. And so depending on what you want to do, when you create an API key, it's going to ask you, okay, which endpoints do you want to make available for this key? Now, it's totally fine to go through and click everything if you're not sure. Um, but in some cases, maybe you don't necessarily want to give a certain key access to certain capabilities. And so you click all of this, you click create API key. The other thing that is very important is you don't want to do what I'm doing right now and reveal the key. Your API keys are secret. It's like an identification code, a personal password. For anybody use a password manager? Yeah? Okay. Revealing your API key is like giving away your single password to your password manager. It's the same exact concept. Once people know what that is, other people can now leverage your API key in order to access those services, get data back, and it's all on your bill. And so you'd want to make sure that you do your best to not expose your API keys to other people. So with that being said, I'm going to hop off the screen now that we kind of know what API keys look like. Usually you don't have to, like this is all hidden here and there's a copy button. And back inside of MindStudio here, you would just simply paste that key in. So that's quickly how you would set up an API connection with a connector block. The third and final type of thing that we need to understand, like the very small difference, is the HTTP request block. And what this block does is it makes an API call directly. So we have not taken the time to go through the API, go through all the endpoints, and make a nice like configuration interface. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't access that service. You totally can. And when you use the HTTP request block, these are all custom and is all defined by you. And we make it a little bit easier. We have some abstraction to this, but it's not 100% all done for you. Like in this case, this connector block has all of the things that you can interact with it. And if we look and add an HTTP, let's see here. I got to go back to the blocks menu, HTTP request. You'll see here that's going to ask you for a couple of things. It's going to ask you for the endpoint URL. So remember we talked about endpoints. So let's say I wanted to do this organization search, but as an HTTP request instead. What I would do is you need to copy the endpoint. So let's look, let's see if we can find that same organization search. Um, Here we go, organization search. And we would copy this and it'll actually show you a couple of other things that you'll want to, like it gives you this kind of sample request here, right? So you have the URL And you can get a bunch of information from this little example here on the right. So you have the URL, which we'll paste in, the method, and when you're looking at a method, it'll tell you what kind of method it is. So it'll say post or get, and it says here on the left-hand side, these are all the methods. So in this case, it's a post, and so we would copy that and add it or select it as post. And then there's these things called headers and parameters and body. And in some cases, you might not need to fill this in, but in other cases, you would, right? So in the case of this particular um, API requests, there's these query params, and we'll go through this in just a second. I'll teach you how to look through all of this, add those values in the proper places. But you basically like copying and pasting a bunch of information to configure all of this stuff manually, right? All that making sense so far? Okay, Doug, I see you kind of shaking your head. We'll dive in a little bit deeper, but all you need to know at this level is integrations, easiest to set up. Those are the blocks that are available on MindStudio. Connectors, different kind of block. It's all configured for you, but you need to find or create the API key. That's a secret uh, like password that authorizes the connection between MindStudio and the service that you're trying to access. And then HTTP request, it's all the same stuff, just completely custom, not configured for the particular service. Okay, so let's go ahead and build. I have a couple of demos, and we're going to start with just these, just integrations. So if you go to the overview in MindStudio here, you can actually access all of your integrations by going to your workspace, and then you'll see this section called integrations here. You can see all of the services that you can create connections for and all of your active connections. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just delete a bunch of mine so that I can show you how to reconfigure it. And I'll even delete Google, we'll delete HubSpot, all the things that we're going to be using today. All these other things we're not going to really use, so it's fine. Um, and so you can find all the integrations here. You can add and quickly create connections as well from this menu here. So if you wanted to, connect to Apollo directly without the block, you could do that. And it's the same interface. It works exactly in the same way. And the first thing that we're going to be looking at is a very simple AI agent. Let's see if I can clear the mock data here. And this AI agent, all that it does is it uses our built-in integrations to fetch a Google Doc, have a checkpoint block so we can chat and make updates to the block, and then update that same Google Doc and overwrite everything. And the way that this works, you can see here that we have this thing that says dynamic ask at runtime or connect new account. And this account thing is super important because what this means is, do you want your end user to connect their Google account as they're using the service, or do you want to like configure that connection? So if you're using this only for yourself, it's better to connect a new account and just sign in my case to Google in order to have that connection ready, right? And what's nice about this is once you've created the connection, it then becomes available for you when you make this dynamic. So even though I have the connection set up here, now when I run the agent, well, actually let's take a look at what this looks like here. I will run the agent. So let's open up the draft. And when we run the agent, you get this interface. This is a dynamic account setup. And you can see here that my account is already connected because I connected it in the editor. Now, if I was a completely different, like a completely different user, I would connect a new account, and that would allow me to then choose a document from my Google Docs. So I have this demo document This is like a blog post about the wonderful world of dogs. Obviously, this could be whatever document that you're trying to modify. And then when you click on approve, that document gets sent to this interface here, and where we can now edit. This is all just Markdown, which we've learned about as we've been building our AI agents. You can edit it directly, or you can also ask, chat with the AI agent. So I can say, can you make the entire article longer? It will expand on all of the points of the article. And now we have a little bit more to work with in here. And when we're done, we can save the changes. We can cancel the update. When we click on save, that will essentially update the Google Doc. So I have this Google Doc here, right? This is my current Google Doc. And if I go and save this, what's happening, we'll then need to, we have another block in here that this was the checkpoint block. We have another block called update Google Doc, right? And that update Google Doc simply updates the document with the changes that we've made. Uh, we also have to choose a document, and we've also set this to dynamic so that we can view this in the front end here when we're using the AI agent. Mark, I see I'll get to you in just a second. Um, so we select our document, we then approve it. Now it's updating the entire document. And when we go back, you can see that this now has longer paragraphs in it. The article itself is much longer. Um, Mark, yes, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the authentication piece. So, you've have the new ability to give people agents that don't need them to have a MindStudio account. So I'm envisioning,
Mm-hmm.
an agency that's selling apps, and you don't want your clients to be, having to dynamically do this every time. So
Mm-hmm.
is there any way of like making it so that they're actually connected um, to their account, like in this example, to Google without doing it dynamically? And I mean, you don't want to. I mean, I have no interest in knowing what their login and password is.
Yeah, so for security purposes, you'll want them to authenticate kind of each time that they run the agent. And once they're authenticated once, that's stored within the same browser session. So if they run it multiple times, they'll still be connected. So they won't, all they'll need to do is choose the file that they're looking to modify or edit. But it's actually super important that for somebody that has never used your agent before, for them to sign in to Google and actually authorize MindStudio to make changes to documents on that user's behalf.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess my question is like, can we make that authentication sticky? So like if they get out of it and then they come into it another time, or is it they're going to have to authenticate every time?
It depend if it's within the same session. So let's say I finished, this agent. If I ran it again, I would still have the account associated with my like stub account that I've created. But let's say, for example, if I went into and opened this up in like incognito and I was a different person, that's a new in Mind Studios. I There's no association, there's no connection to that user. So if
Yeah.
you were, for example, wanting to create an AI agent that has that user authentication built in, we have this thing, and maybe we'll do a master class or like a workshop about signed URLs. But essentially, what this allows for is for you to associate a, a user on your website to a user ID on MindStudio for like whenever they are running an agent on your website, if that agent is embedded. So that could be something that would solve this because then that connection would be already set up for that user. But in this particular case, it's like it's only for the browser session that um, that information is sticky.
Yeah. So in that case, they would need a MindStudio account, right? HTTP for the embedding?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
you would if you were embedding an AI agent, and I think it's actually we'll probably end up doing a workshop all around embedding AI agents on your website and kind of best practices around that. But if you were embedding, the person doesn't need a MindStudio account in order to access the agent. It's similar to if you are taking advantage of our new feature that is public and allows for um, allows other people to use the agent without an account. I believe that is if you have agent owner, you can allow for anonymous access. And in this case, the person will not need a MindStudio account in order to use your agent because we've enabled anonymous access.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Um, okay, Gord, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I'm mobile, so if the background noise, I apologize to the participants. A quick question: as the agent goes and makes those changes in the Google Docs environment, where's the content? This has to do with data privacy, sovereignty, at rest, etc. Is the change being made within the Google repository only, or is it coming back into the MindStudio environment in some way, etc.? So again, it has to do with the information if it's confidential, etc. Does it just remain where that subscription was?
I'm not sure I completely understand your question, but I can say that the connections that are created using this, like an integration block like this, usually it's an OAuth connection into that service. So there's kind of two parts. One is the user will sign in using their, it'll be a completely separate pop-up window, completely, that's something that's completely uh, owned by the service that the service like helps to configure. So they sign in there and then they actually opt into allowing the connection to be made and for MindStudio to kind of, depending on the action, read, write, etc., into that service. Those uh, the tokens are always secret in that case.
Okay, all right, that helps. I just looking again. It's different than the traditional or the beginning of MindStudio, say a year ago, whatever, where a lot of things were more about uploading a content, to your environment, etc. And some clients don't want their content to be removed from their area, right, from their repositories. It's more about that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. The data, I mean, the all it's doing is reading the data, so it doesn't actually it's not like it's taking the Google Doc and storing it somewhere. It's essentially like getting a text scrape of that Google document in this particular case and using that as like saving that to a variable for use during the run itself.
Right. And then after the run, that just disappears.
Yeah, for the duration of like it'll still be available in the debugger technically. Um,
Okay.
and that I think is stored for like 30 days or something like that.
Great. Okay. No, I appreciate that. Thanks very much. I'll let you get back
Hmm.
to the session.
Yeah, no problem. Dwayne and Joseph, I need to continue, but we'll pause in after I kind of go through the next couple of agents because this is the easy stuff. And I want to make sure that we get into and have time for the nitty gritty. Um, so please feel free to raise your hand again. Or keep your hand raised too if you want to just like stay in the queue. That's totally cool. Or ask questions in the chat. Yes, Danielle, thank you. Um, okay, so moving on. This is like a perfect example and a very simple example of using just an integration block. You connect to a service, you sign in. It's called OAuth. You give MindStudio permission to make those connections. Let's take a look at something a bit more complex, but also super useful. So if you have participated in any of the MindStudio boot camps, this agent should feel very familiar. It is an agent that extracts people information from a web page, and then we use a run workflow block to go through each individual person, enrich the contact, and then add that contact to our CRM. Now, when we built this in the boot camp, we did this using Update Google Sheets. You were already using an integration block, right? There are other kinds of integration blocks, and there's other blocks that allow you to enrich that particular contact. And so I want to kind of run through a couple of these. And for those of you that haven't used this before, we're going to build it and then we're going to run it on like a random LinkedIn page. So what I've set up here, and we can kind of run through the agent really quick. I can't run it because nothing's connected just yet, but once we get those connectors all set up, it'll be super cool. This agent, it has a run mode of browser extension. And then so what that means is when you're on a web page, you can click a button in your Chrome extension, it will trigger the agent, take all the information on the page. And then we have this block that's a generate text block. It makes a call to an AI model where we have it extract all of the people mentioned on that page. And we want that to return a first name, last name, a description, job title, company name, and a LinkedIn profile. And we feed it all of the HTML from that page. And so it feasibly should be able to get all of this information. And we also want that information structured using JSON, right? So each individual person is this JSON object that includes information like the first name, last name, et cetera, et cetera. This is just an example, and you can see we have an object, and we actually want an array of objects, with each object being an individual person, right? As we continue down the workflow, we now have this list of people, and each person has individual pieces of information that we can tap into, and we iterate through the list of people, right? And so we have this run workflow block, and this run workflow block is this workflow. And this workflow does a couple of things. One is we send in all of the information about that individual person. So that is the one object here. So when we get this back, we'll actually have 10, 15 of these. It'll just send one of them in. And then we ask an AI model, in this case, I'm using Sonar because it has access to the web, to return the domain that's most likely associated with this person and give me just the domain name that I can use. And so at this point, we want to enrich the lead. We want to find out what their email is, and then we want to add it to our CRM. And we've already seen how Google Sheets works, so I won't spend a bunch of time on Google Sheets, but if you've gone through our bootcamp, you know how this works. We put in each individual variable into like this CSV format, and then we add it to a Google Sheet that we create. So we could add it to a Google Sheet like this. And actually, maybe if it's not too much trouble, we can just connect these all together because these are all basically pre-configured. So let me go ahead. I will select the account. I have this sample people, but I actually want to, I actually want to change this to be this demo people. And in this case, we have a name, not first name, last name. And so in here, we will simply just have first name, last name there. We want this to go in order. So we'll have email. Sorry, I'm bouncing around. I'll actually break these out and simplify our screen a little bit. You would basically put these in order. So name, email, job title, company name, domain, and then we have about and LinkedIn. So let's go ahead and switch the order of these rows here. So this is going in, it's taking that person info, finding the domain that it's most likely associated with. Then it's using this integration block, which actually doesn't require any sign-in at all. It's just we're using our own API, like MindStudio's internal API in order to access this service. Um, and that asks us to provide the domain, the first name, and the last name of this person in order to get the email of that person. I have a quick reference guide. By the way, here's a good tip if you're ever getting lost on variable names. I always find it very helpful to create these sorts of quick references. So these are all my variable names, and on the left side is what they're associated with. Um, and then we're sending this over to Google Sheets. You can see we have our email here, and then we're ending the workflow. Let me go ahead and I'll quickly publish this. And we can open up this AI agent. Let's go to maybe LinkedIn, and I'll look up something like sales director. And we'll do a little people search here. And so you can see I get a bunch of sales directors on this page. I can open up the Chrome extension, and let's see if I can find my agent here. Maybe not. I may need to pin the agent. Hold on one second. Let's open this AI agent, and we will pin in extension. So now that should appear here. There we go. Demo, extract, enrich, add to CRM. And what this agent is doing, you can see it's following each of the steps. But if we go in and into the debugger, we can see that it's first extracting all of the people that are mentioned on that web page. And again, if you've taken the boot camp, this should all feel very familiar. This is basically the exact agent that we're building, that we build inside of the boot camp. And then you can see it has all of these sub workflows. So in this case, we got a list of 10 people, right? And for each person, we are trying to find their domain. And then we use this email finder block in order to get the email. That provides us with this email here. And then we update the Google Sheet. We add a new row to the Google Sheet. So if we go back to our Google Sheet, we can now see that we have all of this information here. And let me go ahead and just reset this stuff. So we get all of this information back. And each time we run this, we get more and more pieces of information back. Now, it's not going to run 100% of the time. Sometimes the database doesn't have the email, but that's pretty cool, right? But Google Sheets is not necessarily the best CRM to work with, right? There are other types of CRMs that we might want to leverage. One step up from Google Sheets, for example, is Airtable, right? We might want to, instead of using Google Sheet, we might want to use Airtable, right? And if we were to configure this Airtable block, let's go ahead and go to our sub workflow. Let's say, okay, instead of getting the email this way, we want to actually create or update a record in Airtable. We can do that. Airtable is going to say, in this case, I deleted my connection, but basically you'll need to sign in to Airtable. So you connect a new account. And this block, because I'm already signed in to Airtable, I know it's a little hard to see. Maybe I can share just this little screen here. This is what pops up when I click Create Connection. It's this pop-up window that says, "Hey, MindStudio is requesting Airtable access." This is from Airtable. So Airtable is saying, "Hey, do you want to allow this service to access your things on Airtable?" If so, which resources do you want to allow access to? Select a base. In this case, I have my demo CRM, and then I can grant access to this table, right? And it'll take a couple of seconds, and once it's done, it will say, okay, you are all connected. Great. Now you can view this here, right? And so now your account is selected. You can then select your the base that you're wanting to use. In this case, it's the demo CRM. And then inside of demo CRM, for those that are familiar with Airtable, a base is kind of like a workspace, and a table is the actual like tab here. So I have this base called demo CRM and this table called people. And so I can select people, and then we're just adding new items to this table here. So you can see, because this is an integration, we already it automatically pulls in that table information. This stuff wasn't in here until we selected the people table. And so now we can use those same values to update the road data. So now we have the first name. Oops, let me go back here. We can do person dot first name, person dot last name. We can add in the job title, which is person dot job title. Luckily, I named these in a way that makes sense, because it just represents the thing that we're looking to add. So here I have person dot company name. And so this, it's really important that you understand how to use these kinds of variables, because what we're getting back, you can see here in the debugger, we get back this list of people, and each person, each thing we pass through the sub workflow, this is referred to as person. And we're using dot notation to access the individual properties of this person. So to access the first name, we do person dot, and then we go first name, and we see the first name Sean. Person dot company title, right? Person dot company name, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a couple of other values that we don't have in that person variable, like the email and the actual domain of that company, right? So as we add these, let's see, email is one of those that we don't have, but so that's represented by a different variable, hunter data. And hunter data is like a different object that has like different properties, right? So if we look in this sub workflow, we get this back, right? And all of this is hunter data. And so we can access hunter data. The email would be hunter data dot email, right? Uh, sorry, I'm bouncing around so much, but it just goes to show like how valuable understanding how to go through structured data and access different pieces of structured data, because there's no way for you to say, hey, AI, like separate all of this and add this to Airtable for me, right? You need to be able to specifically define the things that you want to add in. So um, that's why we spend basically in our boot camps a full day uh, on just structured data, along with this exercise. Okay. Um, we have domain as our site. We have person.linkedin as our LinkedIn. And then I think we have person.about. Then we have these like other things that we don't necessarily need to fill in. We can leave them blank. So let's go ahead and update this. The output variable is going to save the record ID. So if you're wanting to use that later, you can. But for now, we'll just publish this. And let's go ahead and run this again. So if we run it one more time, we'll close this out. And open this back up, and it's gonna do the exact same thing. It's gonna try and find all of those emails. It's gonna try to find all the information from each person, and it's gonna add it to our other CRM, which we made. I made like 3 or 4 different CRMs, so just be prepared because there's different services in each of them. If we look in the debugger here, we can hopefully see all of this running. By the way, you can run this as many times as you want, so I don't have to wait for this to finish running. I can actually go to the next page and start a new run, and go to the next page and start a new run, and go to the next page and start a new run. And hopefully in a couple of minutes, I can get, 40 new contacts just from my LinkedIn search. Um, it might not be able to find all of them because the email information is not readily available, but it's there. And so we have 4 separate workflows all working all at the same time. And so now you can see that it is starting to enrich each of those contacts. Slowly but surely, we should be seeing these contacts be added into this table here, right? And it's kind of a fun game to just like see new contacts and like look at your list growing and be like, okay, how many new contacts can I get today, right? And it works in other places um, besides LinkedIn, right? Like if I went to let's say AI conference 2025. I don't know. I'll just look up conferences 2025, right? And scroll past the sponsored post. Top AI conferences to attend. Da, 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 da. Okay, AI Summit New York, where commercial AI comes to life. This may or may not work, but what will happen is you can go to the speakers list, right? And now I can go through and I can run this agent, and I'm able to run the extract people agent and see if I'm able to actually get all the information because it's all there, right? Their name, their title, their LinkedIn profile, their uh, their place of work. All of these things are all readily available. Okay, so while that is running, we're gonna dive back into this draft agent. You can see here I got 40 contacts, which is awesome. I didn't get all the emails because some of the emails again are not available. Let's do the same thing, but in this case, we're going to use a more advanced CRM. We're going to use HubSpot. Who has anybody used HubSpot before? Is anybody familiar with HubSpot? I am a relatively new user, but I know that there are some pros here. And I have just a sandbox account with none of our contacts in here, but our CRM for contacts has all of that same information. And as you know, if you've ever used HubSpot, there's like 300 properties that you can update about a particular person, right? And so let's do the same thing. We're gonna update our enrichment flow, and we're gonna connect this to HubSpot instead, right? This is going to create a new contact in HubSpot. And this contact, the nice part about this block is that it also has the ability to create the contact, create a company if that company doesn't exist yet. And then for those that are familiar with HubSpot, companies can be associated with people. And so it'll create that connection between the new company and the new person. So I'll show you what that looks like. And in this case, we're gonna again create a new account, connect a new account, and this one is also an integration block. So it's gonna ask me to sign in to HubSpot. I'm already signed into HubSpot, so you can see if I share my screen, this is the pop-up that I get. It says connect MindStudio to HubSpot. And the interfaces are always slightly different because they're all coming from that particular service, right? In this case, I choose, okay, I want to connect my Sandbox account. Great, awesome, woohoo. Let's go back to our other screen here. Once it's all connected, it'll say, nice, you have finished connecting your account. And now it's available here, right? And what's cool about this sort of thing, we can actually go in and let's use this quick reference guide again, because that helps me not have to look back and forth for
Hey,
all
Lewis,
this
you're not
stuff.
sharing your screen.
Okay, let me stop sharing. Thank you. And let me reshare one more time. Thanks for letting me know. Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So now we're going to do the same thing, but with this HubSpot record. We have our email. Email is the domain. Oops, sorry. No, email is hunter data dot email. And then we have the first name. That's person dot first name and person dot last name. Okay. And then you can start to add different properties. Okay, so there's this thing called CRM. There's this thing called contacts. And there's also these things called properties, right? And so if we go into edit columns here, we can see that each of these columns has a different property value, and HubSpot has hundreds of them. You can also create your own custom properties. And so there's no way for us to include all of this inside of a menu here on the right-hand side. And so what you can do with this block is you can just pick and choose which properties you want to add. So I can look up things like company name. Let's say we have a LinkedIn URL. What are we missing here? Company website, company domain name we have here. So I can use domain. And why don't we say maybe description or something like that? For now, let's just include these. We have person dot company name and person dot LinkedIn. And all this is just configuring these forms, telling your agent where to send all that data. That's all these connections do, right? They can fetch data, they can send data to other places. And what that does, the big picture of this is that makes the whole internet accessible to you, makes all your services accessible to you, and allows you to process information that you pull in from services with AI and then send that information back to those services. Okay, this is good enough for our HubSpot contact creation. We're now finding an email for that particular person. So let's go ahead and publish this, and we will add some people to our HubSpot CRM. So let me go ahead and I will now run this again. So we're extracting people. Let's go to the next page, extract some more people. And again, we can do this on a number of different pages, right? Let's see if it actually added, in this case, it did add all of those people that were on that speaker form, right? And it was able to find the emails of a lot of those people, which is awesome, along with their LinkedIn URLs. So super cool stuff. Okay, while this is running, I'm going to pause for questions just to see if this makes sense or if there are other questions around specific blocks that I might be able to help you all out with. But really, just as a reminder, the point is you can connect to a bunch of services and you can send data to those services. You can extract data from those services, and that's all done via this thing that we call API that, very few of us know what those letters mean, but it's all it is a connection between two services. Dwayne?
Hi, thank you. So I have a question. We're in the real estate industry, and we're trying to find either existing connections or to specifically listing databases, or if we requested it, would you be able to create a connection specifically to a couple of databases like Bold Trail or Connect MLS, as an example?
If those services have an API, well, I guess a follow-up question, is it a service or is it like a database?
Database.
Um, yes, but we're not going to cover that in this workshop. We do have a block, and I'll show you that block, and we have a good tutorial video that maybe we can send you. But there is this let's see here. Let me type it in. Uh, Query SQL database. So query an external database.
Mm-hmm.
And this will ask you to also create a connection to that database, but it's a little more intensive. You'll need to actually go through and find where all of this information lives. But it works in the same way. And you can choose depending on whether it's like SQL or MySQL. There's all a bunch of these different database languages or like variations of the language. You can use this block to do that. And what I like to do even is have a block in front of that block. Like I'm not super well versed in SQL, but I use AI to just like write that query for me. So I'm like, okay, let me put in a user input, type in like find all people with the last name Williams or something like that, and um, it's able to generate the SQL database query for that. And then because you have the connection already set up, you then transfer the output of this block into this block here. The other option is let's say it's not like a SQL database, but it's an external service that contains data similar to this HubSpot CRM here. By the way, you see it added some of those contacts into HubSpot now, and we can now work with them, trigger other workflows to utilize this data, enrich these people, et cetera, et cetera. Um, if it has an API, I'm going to show you how to leverage that API. So even though we don't have a connection to that service, you can still absolutely connect to that service and get the data that you're looking to get. So I'll cover that one in just a second.
Okay.
And then let me see if I can. In the meantime, maybe Josh or Lewis could help me find the video on querying external databases.
A quick
And
question, actually, Luis. Doug
oh
asked
yeah.
me this while you were gone. He was just asking which model you were using in your example.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I typically, obviously, this is a matter of personal preference. Let me just start by saying that you're going to find models that work better for you and your prompting style. When I build agents, I set my default model to Gemini 2.5 Flash. And for more resource intensive tasks, I like using Gemini 2.5 Pro. And then there's really only one reason that I do that, and that is because of the context window. Um, it allows me to just you can all see my screen again, yeah? It allows me to uh, upload up to 1 million tokens. So you can see there are some other models do support this, GPT 4.1 Nano. But yeah, like Lewis was saying, 4.5 Sonnet is also now available. That supports 200,000 um, tokens. But that's really the only reason why I like to use these two Google models. It's just because the context window is so massively large. I don't have to worry about like overloading it with data. But for like smaller things, really, and by the way, 200,000 tokens is a lot of tokens. But if you're uploading like an entire, CSV file, things can get unwieldy. So I just keep this as the default, and Flash is pretty quick. So yeah. Okay, so let me go ahead and I'll publish this one more time. Let me run this one more time, and we will see. Let's go ahead and run this agent again. And hopefully, in this case, what it's going to do is it's going to leverage the Apollo block that we have created in our sub workflow to enrich that contact and hopefully get the other identifying uh, pieces of information about that person. In this case, we just need their email, but we can see kind of what happens when we run this this agent here. Hold on one second. Enrichment. Oh, that's why it was failing, because I did not connect the account. Okay, so again, we'll need to connect the account via the API key. I forgot that I had deleted it at the beginning of this call because we were going to reset it. I created this new key at the very beginning of this call. So if you remember, I clicked create new key, and there's this copy button where I can copy the key. And then in my agent, I simply paste the key in. So for connectors, that's what you're going to have to do. And I'm not worried about exposing this key because it is my demo key, and I'm going to delete it immediately after this call so that other people don't end up using it. So now we have this all set up. We have their first name, last name. Let's go ahead and publish this, and we'll run this one more time. So now it's going to go through, extract the information that we need from this page. And let's take a look, once it finishes extracting the people, take a look at the data that comes back from the Apollo block, because it's quite different in structure than the data that comes back from the Hunter IO block. So in this case, let's check the API key. Hold on one second. Looks like my authentication is not working, so let's go ahead and create a new key. And in this case, we are just looking for enrich. Here we go. Organization enrich, or maybe we look at people show. We can look, and there should be a people enrichment endpoint here, which is called people/match. So I'm going to look up people/match. We'll enable that, and then we are done. And I'm going to call this demo delete. So there we go. We have a new API key. Let's go ahead and copy this key. And then again, let's go ahead and set up our connection here. I'll go into my sub workflow. We will connect a new account, put in the API key, and we will save the connection. Okay, so now this connection is saved. Let's go ahead and publish this agent one more time and try this one more time. And then, yeah, like in some cases, maybe a block is down or something. You can use your own API, use your own HTTP request. So let's go ahead and close this out. We'll refresh the page. Just make sure everything is all refreshed and reset. And maybe we'll go back to page 1 here. And then we can use the people extract one more time. Really what I want to show you is just how to configure this thing. All right. I think we're going to move on from this one simply because I think something's happening with my network because it's not necessarily pulling in the right information. Rather than going through Apollo here, and I can actually I can show you we have a like a completed version of this. If we go to my workspace and go to agents, there should be an agent that we're going to make live fairly soon that I've been working on. That is a ICP to HubSpot. So what this does, and just to quickly demo how this agent works, is we collect ICP info and via some user inputs. We then run an Apollo people search that enriches, like gets people information. And then what we do is verify that that person uh, fits within a particular industry. We later use this enrich person block, which also leverages Apollo. And we enter the person ID, the person name, LinkedIn URL, their website URL. But when we make the HTTP request, actually this is all pre-configured, so I may be, I think it's in a different, hold on one second. Okay, here we go. So here we have, what we're doing is we're prepping a search query. So I give all my ICP info and I say this is in the prompt. I say that your job is to build me a URL for Apollo people search. Parse the text from ICP, normalize all the values. You know, there's a bunch of instructions in here. And then here are all of the parameters, and here's the base URL, like all of the info. I basically copied and pasted the documentation for all of this and then ask it to return only a URL string. So these are all of the different parameters that are included here. So we see like, you know, first name, whoops. Sorry. The keywords, locations, seniorities, those are all parameters that we can pass through the URL, this base URL. And then we use that URL, and I have this HTTP request block where I send in this post request to bring me back a list of people. So rather than using people enrichment, I'm using this people search that gives me a list of like 100 different contacts, right? And when all right, I keep losing this agent. When we run this, what we get back is a list of like 100 different contacts. So then we use generate text block to filter, uh, like turn all of this into an array of people. We map those contacts using a custom function. And then for each of the, whoops, for each of these, we have a sub workflow, and the sub workflow does a very similar thing. It finds an email and creates that HubSpot contact. But this is how I would go about using this HTTP request block. You'd prep an AI agent to create a query for the endpoint. So here's the endpoint, like add all of the parameters that make sense to the endpoint, and then run an HTTP request block using that URL that we generated. Well, let's dive into something a little bit different. Um, Here I have an AI agent that is a news scraper. And what I'm going to try and do here is sign up for a completely new service. And this service is called News API. You can see here that for testing, it's completely free. So I can get an API key. So I have an API key here. I can go to my documentation, and then we can use this GET request here and do the same thing, right? Actually, I don't know if I'm going to have time for this. So what I'm going to do is just do a quick recap. We might need to do a part 2 on this. So I'm going to set up another event where we can actually just go through this one more time. Does same time next week work for everybody? Because we have about 15 minutes, and if I try to explain all of this in these 15 minutes, I think we're going to get lost and rushed. So what I'm going to do is pause here, and we're going to talk about the first 2 kinds of integrations. The first is just regular blocks. The second is these connector blocks. Any questions? Did those first two parts make sense? Does everybody feel comfortable using those blocks? Do you have any ideas on blocks? Oh, the other thing really quick that I want to highlight while we're here is we have this, if you have services that you'd like turned into blocks, if you go to the connectors page, you'll notice that there's a button to request a connector. And this will just lead you to a form that will give us some information about the service you're trying to connect to, a way to contact you, and then let us know how you would use that connector. And we're pretty fast about creating new connections and making those available for folks. Okay, I'll stop sharing. Mark, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the Microsoft ecosystem, like Outlook and that, which is pretty common, and Outlook Calendar. I mean, Google is so easy to attach to, but I've worked with N8N and Outlook, and those guys are kind of nightmares. But I was just wondering if it's like what the HTTPS request. I mean, is that configurable, or are we going into the weeds there?
Yeah, some services, like very big monolithic services, like Microsoft and Azure, have a little more of an intense process than just simply tapping into a REST API or an API like to that service. And so it will require I don't think an HTTP request block would work in that case. Like if you were trying to like access your Outlook emails, um, an HTTP request wouldn't work for something like that. But connecting to like a SaaS company like HubSpot or like Apollo or any other service that has an API, Airtable, like those kinds of services, that's primarily what you would use this block for. That being said, it's worth a shot. Like I think I haven't looked into their into their documentation specifically, so I can't say for certain. But I know that those bigger companies, it's a little more complex of a process. You have to like get authorized. You have to become an authorized developer for applications and register your application in their database and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating because it's just such a common use. Uh,
Totally.
and sure would be nice to be able to throw some AI into it.
Yeah. Well, we have a bunch of these Google Suite blocks, and so it's not uh we know that Teams and like Microsoft 365 are I don't even know if they still call it Microsoft 365 anymore, but that sort of ecosystem is a place that we do want to build direct integrations for at some point. So, but yeah, I don't think connecting externally would be that simple.
How would you fetch contact of people whose list is hosted behind a paywall? Let's say you're going to the New York Times, you have to have a subscription to New York Times, you want to fetch the list of journalists that are writing about a specific topic. Would you use one of those blocks to fetch the names of the people and associate their name to a domain? But my
So
question is, I'm sure you can do this, but how would you fetch the content on the New York Times that is blocked by a paywall?
Yeah, so here's how I would go about researching something like that because I think it's less of like I want to be able to teach you how to like discover these things as you're building your own agents. So what I would do, can you share my screen? Is or can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Sebastian, please share my screen.
Oh, for sure.
I would look. So you want to see if you can access New York Times journalists. First thing I would do is I would type in New York Times API and see. You can easily look at their documentation and see if that's an endpoint that you can access. So we would click on this link. Um, Here you can click on APIs. You can see here that they have, it looks like most of their APIs is an archive. So you can look through articles. It looks like there are a couple that are deprecated. So there was this semantic API. So in this case, like it might not be feasible to get the name and contact information of all the journalists via API, right? So then the second thing is, okay, maybe you could build some sort of scraper, right? Um, that is able to see through the paywall, right? But most likely you're going to need to have access um, to that particular article in order to get the contact. And you need to do this on an article by article basis. I don't think there necessarily would be a way to get the information of all the journalists. The other thing is, there might be a Google. You might be able to just do a Google search, um, all NYT journalists, right?
Yeah, 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 of
Yeah,
And
course.
you will
like,
receive a great list, believe me. Even you can ask ChatGPT. At
yeah,
Yeah,
least
yeah.
you will
The,
have
the,
great names and then make a search throughout Apollo and
uh,
LinkedIn.
yeah,
But the idea, Luis, is from a concept standpoint. If I want to build an agent that build a connector that is looking for a website who's protected by a paywall, how do I
yeah.
instruct my
Oh,
agent to go past the paywall?
yeah.
Even if I do have an account with a paywall, with
That
a platform, I said the Wall Street Journal as an example, it could be anything else.
That's another thing you can do. Like, let's say you're trying to find people at a company, right? We have a block, I believe, called People Search, um, that maybe we will make public.
Oh.
Oh, here it is. It's in beta right now, but there's this block that we're planning on releasing in the next couple of weeks called People Search. And what this will allow you to do is just put in a prompt like all journalists at New York Times, right? And then get back a bunch of information. Um, and you can limit the number of results and things like that. Um, Number of pages to return all those sorts of things. Um, and so you'd use this block to do that. If you were specifically looking for like contacts.
And that would go across the paywall of the New York Times.
Well, no, it would. What this does is it's very similar to, let's say you have a subscription to Apollo, for example, which is like a database of leads,
Yeah.
right? And you could do a people search in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Connect your Apollo account, type in uh, journalist,
Yep.
include similar titles, and then um, you could put in company domains. So I think it's like nyt.com, right? To
Oh.
only filter for people at nyt.com, right? And then you get a list of all those people. So it's just searching a database. And so the quality of those, that contact information is limited to the actual quality of the database.
Hmm. Okay. I mean, I'm for the query of looking for journalists. I know I can get around. Let's just say another case study is you want to look through the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other news outlets that are protected by a paywall.
Mhm.
Any articles related to the peace in Gaza, for example, right? And then, you want to extract all this article and put it into a database, into a Google document. Now, the thing is, the question I have is, how do I instruct my AI agent with my login and password across all the news outlets that I have a subscription to, so the agent can scrape the content within each of those news outlets? I know how to build a database because you taught us how to do it. What I'm struggling is, figure out how to instruct my agent. This is my login. This is my password. Scrape the data into here, into this paywall system, and then render what I want.
Yeah, so scrapers, I see what you're saying. Um, for going past paywalled content, a scraper is not going to be able to like type in your information for you. So what you need to do is go, like in this case, like go to the particular publication, which might have an archive of those news stories, or you could also actually that's probably the best way is like just access the archive of those news stories. Um, and then you'd get the actual content via API.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Sebastian. Yeah, it's a good question. It's a tough problem to solve,
Yeah.
I totally see the use case. Irina?
Yeah, thank you so much once again. And I like one feature in MindStudio that I can copy and edit an AI agent, and you are much more talented. So I wanted just to ask you how to find out the best, like for example, because like processes for outbound outreach is like almost the same. The only thing that I need to change, like another CRM system or something. How can I find and sign MindStudio like best agents for like cold outreach, for example, or outbound? Maybe you have like such groups.
So we have our agent store that has a bunch of agents that we've built and released. But we don't have like a repository of or like we don't curate agents that other people have built. That's actually, I
No, no,
think, a
no, yours,
really,
yours.
oh, our agents. Okay.
Yeah, I mean from
Yeah.
MindStudio. I mean
Yeah.
like a
So if,
basic one, like a template.
yeah. So if you go to this agent screen here from your overview page, you literally go to MindStudio, go to your workspace, and there's this tab called Agents. And if you scroll down, there's a bunch of pre-built agents that do all kinds of different things, right? And if there's one that you like and you want to try and modify, you can click on it and you can select make a copy. In
Got
this
it.
case, it's a
Got it.
it's and that'll just let you modify it for your
Yeah, yeah,
own
yeah. I just
purposes.
needed the right place with like finalized templates because during the courses you are creating from scratch, but I know that
Yes.
you already have some ready ones. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah. Hopefully it helps. And if there's other stuff we can add in there, please let us know.
I have a good idea for you if you don't mind. If we can connect directly, I will bring you some great ideas.
Sure. Yeah. Feel free to message me in Slack or on LinkedIn.
Okay, okay, I will. Thank you.
Awesome, folks. Well, I just want to say thank you so much. This is a completely new concept that I've taught, and so you guys are all very much guinea pigs in me being able to actually teach this concept to people. So first of all, I just want to thank you all for spending time with me and helping me to teach you guys in the right way, showing me kind of where all the friction points are in something like this. I really appreciate it. And secondly, hopefully you learned something valuable today. We're going to do a follow-up session same time next week. I hope I can see all of you there. Please invite your friends and to join in. We'll all build some awesome AI agents together. And then if you'd like to host an event, just again, we have that Luma calendar that you're all welcome to join and follow and also submit events too. So if you'd like to teach a concept, or if you built something cool and you want to showcase it or help other people build stuff, that's the place to do it. All right. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you all soon. Where's workshops tomorrow, workshops Fridays. There's a bunch of stuff going on. So yeah, thanks so much. Okay. Talk soon, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Luis. Ciao.
Thank you.